Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Dave Clarke, founder and creative director for Sinister Fish Games, publishers of the recent hits Villagers, Streets, and Moon. Their newest game, Wizards & Co., is currently on Kickstarter. Dave, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Hi, James. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me at such short notice.
Oh, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for coming on, man. You've been responsible for some pretty popular titles. Some of the ones I just mentioned, man, I don't know if you guys just have amazing marketing or just the groundswell around these games was so good, but Moon would be the one that comes to mind. That was everywhere this past fall, so congrats on that. Now, you've been in the industry for quite a while, and I was reading your earlier bio about, being part of the LARP groups and, D&D.
Yep.
Like, how long have you been gaming? Like, how long does this go back?
So I got into it. My favourite aunt, got me into D&D when I was about 8.
Nice.
And I sort of, this was one summer holiday, this glorious summer holiday where I would every summer I would go down and stay with them for a few weeks. And yeah, so after that I was just hooked. So I got basic D&D and made everybody at school play it, and that was it. I fell hard, And then I think when I was about 14, we started a LARP club at school because nobody had we were aware of all this stuff happening that we wanted to be doing, but we're 14, no one can drive. It was all miles away from where we lived. So, do it yourself has always been my motto. So that's what we did.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And was it just D&D, or did you play other kind of board games, or like how did that kind of?
Yeah. So we were all broke, so everything was done with kind of pocket money. Nobody had huge disposable income to be buying loads of stuff. So yeah, you would really get your money's worth out of whatever you had. So we had like basic and expert D&D. And other kids at school had Rollmaster and RuneQuest and Middle Earth role-playing stuff like this, Call of Cthulhu, of course. So that was what I was into and still am from 8 years old. And I've just kind of brought it with me, and it's come and gone over the years where you kind of move house and you don't know the people, so you kind of you can't play for a bit. But it finds a way. Geekiness finds a way, right?
That's true. So what
always
was
come back.
The first game that you guys ever published? What was the first one that you ever published?
So the first one I ever published, I never intended to be a publisher. It literally was purely by accident, and it was after I had sort of all the LARPing and the role playing stuff had kind of wound down. But I was still kind of looking for ways to play games, and that was when I became aware of this kind of, this new golden age of board games that we're in. I think this was around about 2014.
Yeah.
I backed my first Kickstarter 2015, which is the Monolith Conan game, because I'm a big Conan fan. And Oh, am I still?
And you're back.
Oh, hi.
So your first game that you backed was Conan. You're saying the Monolith, and then where'd it go from there?
Yeah. And so it's always kind of been my nature to try my hand at the things that I enjoy. And if I get lucky, maybe I'll make a living out of it for a while. And so I thought, I'll try and learn how to use this Kickstarter thing, and we'll write a game, because the group of friends that the kind of core group that we were doing LARP and RPGs with, one of the things that we always enjoyed doing was just sitting around writing stuff, writing rules for the LARP system, or coming up with adventures and scenarios and stuff for that. Yeah. It's like, well, let's do the same thing in another area, and kind of I came up with a rough idea for this game called Great Scots. And we kind of batted that around for a year or so. Ended up not changing it at all and going back to the original idea. And it kind of scraped through, and we just about funded. Didn't make any money. And And I figured, I'll do this like once a year, once every 18 months or something, and started work on another game. Kind of in the back of my mind, knowing that it's just I'm so slow at designing games. Like this is never going to be a living for me.
Sure.
Designing games because it just takes me so long. And I had at the time I was working at like a printers and sign making place where we worked with like printing on vinyl, and we had cutting machines so we could make custom vinyl stickers and stuff. And I had just received a copy from the first Kickstarter for Gloomhaven, and like I was broke at this point. I had spent far too long like immersing myself in the tabletop industry and figuring out how to get this first game published. I'd neglected my other work. I was my web design stuff, and I was kind of on my seat in my pants, kind of financially. So I had to go and get a job, and it was this print place, using my graphic design chops, such as they are. And this is so Gloomhaven lands. I'd scraped the money together, the $70 that Gloomhaven was first time around. And I'm like, we said we've got all these stickers, and you have to stick the stickers to the board and the cards. Like, I spent my last $70 on this. Like, I'm not going to wreck it with stickers. I'll print some at work on removable vinyl, because we have this special vinyl that you can take off and it doesn't leave any glue behind, right?
Yeah.
Because Cephalofair had released a bunch of the files to the community so that people could make their own content and stuff. So the files for the stickers were right there. So all I had to do basically was rearrange it a little bit, press print at work, and cut them out and stuff. And I told a couple of people about it on one of the board game forums on Facebook, one of the groups, saying, I've got a couple of these left over. Does anybody want one? Obviously, I can't sell them. And someone that I know said, dude, like, ask Isaac, see if you can license them. I was like, oh yeah. And it was literally like an email and a Zoom call with Isaac, and it was on. Like we were doing like an officially licensed sticker pack just in time for the second Kickstarter. And I did it kind of in conjunction with the guy that I was working for. I said, look, I need to kind of have a lot of time on the printer. He's like, if you're bringing in orders and stuff, yeah, fine. So we ran that printer solidly for about 2 months.
Wow.
Printing very, very little else, and cutting all the sheets out ourselves and packaging them up. And I think we did about our first 1,000 sticker sets like that, and the orders didn't stop coming. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the manufacturer that I had used for Great Scott, and I wouldn't have got that gig with Isaac. I don't think Isaac would have said yes had I not had that little bit of experience in knowing how Kickstarter works, and dipping my toes in with it and having like a shred of credibility. So on the back of those stickers, I was able to quit that job and start doing this full time.
And just did the start and full time now into the game industry. Wow.
Yeah, and that was 2016, 17. I think I quit in 2017.
And then the game after that, I believe was a Villagers came after that one.
Yeah. So I'd been talking to Håkon, the designer of Villagers. I think I'd seen him posting about it on BGG, and he does his own artwork, right? And I just really, really like this kind of quirky artwork that he does. And like, do you need any help publishing it? And he's like, oh no, I think I'm gonna do it myself, but stay in touch, kind of thing. So we did, and we sort of talked back and forth about the game as he was developing it. And I took an early version of it to a convention and played it with a few people there and gave him some feedback and stuff. And then he had a kid and kind of decided that he wasn't going to have the time to finish the game and do all the artwork and publish it himself. So he's like, let's do it, let's partner up. And we did. And so the Kickstarter for that was sort of ridiculously beyond our expectations.
Yeah, wasn't it something like, was it £350,000 or like, it's quite large.
Yeah. Yes, something like that. 300 and something. But what happened with it was it started off well, really strong, but it sped up, accelerated. So normally you see the curve of the Kickstarter is a classic kind of U shape, right? Yeah. And I was that for the first week, but then it kind of picked up and accelerated. It was unbelievable, really.
Was there anything specific you guys did that
We were so there were two things I think contributed to that. Like just for whatever reason, that there was a bit of buzz about the game before it went on Kickstarter. I think,
Yeah.
and we it was around. I think we were at UK Games Expo while the Kickstarter was live, and I think it was like for whatever reason it was the most anticipated game. There's a list that someone was doing of what are the hot games at UK
Sure.
Games Expo this year, and I think we were like the most anticipated game or the second most. It was the same year that the I can't remember what it was, the other one that we were sort of vying with. Yeah, but so our stall was absolutely rammed the whole time of people wanting to demo the game, and people were demoing it and then backing it in front of us on their phones and stuff. It was absolutely crazy. And right, the other thing we did was we spent a lot of money on Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And they absolutely performed. Like we were using BackerKit as our pledge manager, and one of the services that BackerKit offer is that they will run your ads for you, right? So that they know what they're doing with the placements and audiences and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I had like the head of their advertising division like calling me up and saying like, what are you doing? Like, your return on investment is like 7 times or something. And they were saying like, this is sort of, this is a 1 in 1,000 occurrence, like how well the ads are performing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we did. It was just right place, right time.
I think if I take because I think you guys use BackerKit for Moon as well, right?
Yeah. I've used them for everything since Villages. Yeah.
And so the artwork for those 3 games is got this kind of minimalistic, kind of Apple kind of vibe to it, kind of like almost like Isle of Cats. Same thing. They've got that kind of minimalistic kind of approach to their design, which like the photography works very well with that kind of design, right? And so I remember seeing the ads, especially for Moon. They're just visually appealing at like the visuals are just so appealing, right? So any kind of time you see the ad saying, hey, on Kickstarter back now, and you have like an image of the box, and the box artwork looks great, and then some of the cars and game components in front of the box on like whatever stark background. I mean, it just pops, right? And it's in your news feed and things like that. So, I think that you guys did clearly the ads is important. And I think anybody will tell you that, I mean, if you're not advertising going into your campaign, I mean, you can do a good campaign, but I mean, it really helps to advertise, right? That's really going to help you get to the next level. But having the visuals that takes it to another level. And certainly I would say your design, like the design aesthetic you have across your games, is very good.
Yeah. So that series of games, that's all down to Håkon, the designer and illustrator. It's certainly not any magic that I'm adding.
But still the publisher, right? So you still are part of the benefit of that. So
of course.
And so you did Villagers, and I think it was Streets next.
Correct.
And then Villagers second edition.
So it was an expansion for Villagers called Shifting Seasons.
And then it went into Moon. So rapid success. And each of those games, I mean, were funded very, very well. I mean, those are big campaigns, right? So having
like 9,000 backers, something like that.
Yeah. So having kind of a consistent, track record, on an annual basis like that, I think has been, I mean, it's great, right? Because they kind of build on each other, right? The people love the one game, then they see another game coming that's kind of part of the same genre, same artist, same designer, so forth. Then it, you can bring a portion of those people with you in addition to new backers and so forth to bring on as well.
Yes, right, and we did that kind of unusual box, like the sort of the deck box kind of thing.
Yeah, the deck boxes,
which are those games are kind of a loose trilogy. This sort of charting human endeavor through the ages kind of thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then so that led into your most recent game, Wizards and Co. Where did the idea of this game? Where did this game start?
So after the Villagers Kickstarter had happened, and I think I was just absolutely shell shocked by the whole experience. And I was like, I'm a board game publisher now. I can like go to designers and ask to see their games and offer to publish them, right? So I emailed a bunch of my favorite designers, and basically Virginio and his motley crew said yes and gave me a game. But this was like sort of just about pre-pandemic. It was pre having our first child, and those two things kind of really knocked me, and I wasn't able to publish things at the rate that I had assumed I would. Mm-hmm. And so this game has been a kind of bubbling away in the background for far too long, and I've been profusely apologizing to the designers for how long it's taken us to get around to it. But anyway, it's here now.
So you're like you're a team of one, right? Like you're kind of a one-man company.
More or less, yeah. I have like people helping me part-time.
Yeah. So a lot of us publishers, that's what we do. They're generally in the hobby industry, teams of 1 to 3. Usually, kind of 3 is like a lot. Like to be as part of the core team, right? So it's usually one person, maybe 2, and then you bolt on your services as you need them by game, and then you get into the next game and you bolt on different people and other services and so forth. So your broader team is large, but the company itself is usually like a single individual or a couple individuals.
Yes.
Does that, and I know that the amount of time involved in publishing a game is quite a lot, even if you're doing it full time. Mm-hmm. What is your capacity? So when you said you didn't get this out as fast as you wanted, is there a like kind of a limit you've set that you're kind of sitting at right now? Is it 2 games a year? Is it 1 game a year? Like kind of what's your limit right now?
Yeah, so I've been kind of refining our processes and just figuring out what it's possible to do, and a lot of it's governed by my home life. Like my wife and I are raising a little chap on our own with not much support, and so that kind of takes a lot of our time sometimes. But I think where we're at the minute, I'm hoping to do kind of probably one Kickstarter and one non-Kickstarter a year, right? And if I can get things done efficiently enough, then I'll possibly do 2 Kickstarters. But yeah, so 3 a year would be a really heavy year for us.
It's a lot, right? And then when you say non-Kickstarter, what do you mean by that for those people that are listening?
So, like, traditional straight to retail, straight into distribution. So we're lucky enough that we've got a really good distribution setup. We have a warehouse in America, and we've worked through one of the larger distributors there. So we can do that, and it's a case of me figuring out like how to advertise for retail, how to sell to retail, because it's a different game to Kickstarter. Yeah,
it's a different ball of wax altogether. So with this game, Wizards & Co., so you've been kind of stewing on this now for a few years, right? So since you did Villagers.
Yeah.
And then the decision to launch it this year, was it just you finally got it ready? You finally had like the bandwidth, or is that kind of what led to it?
Yeah, because working with Håkan, so Håkan and I, until, well, no, I won't talk about contracts and things. We have an agreement that we work together, but it's not official, and so until now we've gone kind of game to game. Like Håkan will come to me a few months after we finished the last one. I go, okay, do you want to see my new game? Like, yes, I do. So that's how I've been doing it with him, and it's basically I need to kind of look after Håkan and make sure he has releases coming through, because this is his full-time job as well. So it's just kind of trying to find gaps where I can do stuff that doesn't inconvenience him too much.
Yeah. So for people that are watching or even listening, can you describe what Wizards & Co. is about? And I'll show some things on screen here as you're talking, so they can kind of see some of the visuals. The visuals look really awesome. Cool. And I was looking through some of the reviewers too who talked about this game, and I mean everybody loved it, right? Like they loved kind of this. There's some take that elements to it, right? And
it's horrible, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you can walk us through kind of the game just as an overview, and then kind of the basic mechanics of the game for those that are listening.
Yeah, sure. So in Wizards & Co., you are an awful greedy wizard who has hired a bunch of brutes and beasts to go and raid the abandoned dungeons of this dead necromancer. And unfortunately, all your rivals have had the same idea, and so you've gone and hired this gang of minions at a discount price, and everybody's gone for the same discount deal. So everybody's got the same minions. You've got a deck of 10 creature cards. Everybody has the same deck. So you're going to do awful things to each other, but the kind of the saving grace of the game is that everybody can do the same awful things. So it's not like just getting beaten down by somebody with a better deck than you in a game of Magic the Gathering. You have exactly the same cards as them, and there's a bunch of different cards in the game. So each game can have a different mix of cards if you want it to. So you have these octagonal dungeon boards with entrances around them, and you're going to play your cards around the entrances until all the available entrances are full. And then when they're full, a battle will be resolved. And so you go around in clockwise order and resolve the effect of each creature. And they're gonna beat up on the creatures next to them. They might shoot a creature that's opposite them. They might steal extra gems from the dungeon, things like this. And then once all that is resolved, the player with the highest strength value of their creatures in the dungeon is going to get their choice of one of two super magical artifacts that are in that dungeon. And artifacts do things like they might be equipment that you can use on your creatures for the rest of the game, or it might be a summoning spell that summons a monster, a new card that comes into your deck that's super powerful, or they might just give you points at the end of the game. And then there are also, each dungeon has an enchantment on it. So there's a deck of enchantment tiles, which get, when you set up each dungeon, you pop an enchantment tile on there, and that is going to change the rules for that dungeon. So there's a lot of variability. Everything's always changing, but it is mostly open information. There's no randomness, when there's no dice. So it's very, very kind of thinky, brain burny kind of game. As mean as it is. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It has been compared to like Libertalia because of the way the creatures kind of resolve in order. Kind of a little bit like Smash Up, that you have like a choice of kind of bases, if you like, that you can attack. And it does remind me very much of Marvel Snap as well, which I think this predates Snap, so we should see them.
Awesome. It looks cool, and I like this kind of uniqueness of the boards too, where once you kind of clear a dungeon, I guess you can reverse the board, right? You flip it over, and then that starts like a new dungeon, and it's a new kind of throwdown. Different for the loot, right?
Different layout on the B side, and so you're collecting, as well as the artifacts which give you points. You're collecting these gems, which there's like a set collection thing at the end, but you need to be careful about cursed gems, because cursed gems are worth negative points. The cursed gems work kind of like the skulls in the expansion for what's the D&D worker placement game? Waterdeep.
Waterdeep, yeah.
And you don't want to be the one with the most.
And you guys have already funded, so congrats on that, right? So this thing is well past its goal, double its funding goal. So congrats. You still got 7 days to go. Back in hockey stick, which we all know will bring significantly more in those last 3 days. As you've been going through this campaign, and you kind of set your eyes on the future, where do you guys kind of go from here? Are you looking to build out more in this genre? Or are you going to go back to kind of the Streets Moons trilogy, that kind of genre? Or do you have a different direction you guys are going altogether?
So I have another game, which again, another one I signed it during the pandemic, actually, when everybody was doing solo games and 2-player games for everybody that was kind of stuck at home with their partners. So we have a 1 to 2 player game, which has some lovely artwork by a well-known artist, which is waiting to get finished. I think there's just graphic design to do on that. We haven't really announced it yet, but that's another fantasy themed one. But it's just a really cool, quirky little game. I signed a game at UK Games Expo, which again I haven't announced, but that's going to be kind of like a very small, compact kind of travel game. And then Håkon and I are doing his first game that's kind of outside of that Villagers Streets Moon trilogy, and we're going to announce that, all being well, at the end of the Wizards & Co. campaign. Håkon is working on the cover art for that now, so that we're going to show that at the end.
Do you take submissions, or is it usually like, how is your
Yeah.
model work? Are you usually going out scouting, or is it people coming to you and you're kind of waiting through, because you get a lot obviously, so, and you're waiting through the pile, or?
Yeah, I get quite a lot of submissions, and I've published one game that we did last year, Honk, which recently won the Origins Award for best children's game,
I saw
which was
that one as
nice.
well. Yeah.
So that one came out last year. That was a kind of straight to retail, and yeah, so that one was done through the submission form on our website, and I've come close to signing some other ones, but again, we're not prolific. Like, I can't be just signing things willy nilly like I sort of did after Villagers.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of getting around to honouring those commitments now, so I can be a lot more selective.
It's tough. I find like I got to a point where when we transitioned, because there's that transition from game designer to publisher, right? And you kind of fall onto the
Yep.
publishing side once you've kind of published your own game, right? And, I'll go to, like, I was at Gen Con recently and I was in the Unpub room, and, going through that room, I'm thinking, I could sign that game. I could, like, you'd see like 3 games where it'd be
Yeah.
like, man, I like it enough. It's something I want. And you got to take that step back and say, okay, but I only have so much time. And so, I got to be more disciplined at picking, okay, what are the ones that either A, I'm super passionate about, or B, I know is a game that's got the legs to do the big numbers, right? Because you're doing this full time now.
Yep.
So you have to deliver in order to pay the bills, right? So it's not as much passion projects anymore. It's
No.
not sometimes, now it's about the business, right?
Yeah, you have to really consider the market and all that kind of thing, which is horrible. That's not what I got into this to do, but you have to.
And then what about game designing yourself? Is that bug still nibbling away at you of going back?
Yeah, it is. I've got 10 or more games kind of, in various stages of just note form, and there's a few prototypes kicking around. Yeah. So who knows, maybe one day, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
at
the
the
part
moment,
that's got to
just-
hit you in the chest too, right? Because that's, again, what brought you into the industry. And it's that
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
kind of creative mode, right? That creative outlet, right? That just kind of taps that need that we all have. And when you have to start shelving that because, like, I know I got to allocate time over here because this is now my job. That's a tough balance as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, everything that I've done prior to this, like, has always been like all about making things and just doing stuff myself. Like, I'm a horrible employee. I really am, because I'm always trying to think up what my next hustle is going to be, and how can I survive without having to work for somebody else. And that's all this is, and this is the one that worked. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the dream. You're living the dream, right? That so many of us have
yeah.
of, not just doing this as a side hustle, but doing it as
Yeah.
a career, right? And doing it successfully. And you guys certainly have been very successful. And I mean, just, man, one hit after another, like, gosh.
Yeah, but you have to keep your feet on the ground. Like Wizards and Co. as I think it's going to be great, and I think it's going to do well in retail. Like, we've had some good interest from sort of third party non-English language publishers. Some very well known publishers are sniffing around, which is really nice. It hasn't performed as strongly on Kickstarter as our other titles have. So just proves that you can't be complacent, and you have to be very careful financially. And
and I think too, if you look at like Kickstarter, and I had this on a game as well, where my Kickstarter funding was to pay for the production, right? Mm-hmm. But the market for the game I knew was going to be, it was a card game, right? I knew retail was where that game was. I was, my consolidators and distributors, I will move through all my inventory, but the initial Kickstarter was to help me get that starting inventory, and that's okay too. And it's kind of like the split model where some games you're going to sell exclusively on Kickstarter, and it might be at a price point that's too high for retail, so Kickstarter is kind of your core audience, and that is your store. And then there's going to be other games where that the Kickstarter is used to help you kind of get that initial funding, right? So you're not out of pocket up front, but then your extended market is then your distribution network and retailers and things like that, right?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you reminded me, talking about like the price of things on Kickstarter. I think one of the things that drove so many pledges on villagers was the price. So I think we did it for £22 or something, and that
Oh, wow.
included an expansion. So what was that? That was like less than $30 at the time, probably US. And you know, so I think it was a great deal at that price, and that was just through me being scared to charge too much for it, and I should have charged more because you know, I'm not saying we didn't make any money on it, but compared to the rest of the games on the market, it could have stood to be more.
Yeah,
But
sure.
but then maybe it wouldn't have as many backers. You know, we'll never know.
Yeah. So with this particular game, if there's people that do want to check out, Wizards and Co., I think it looks super cool. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. So if everybody wants to find it, click on it, check it out, see if it's something that interests you. Certainly if you're into take that play that are very thinky and have kind of that wizardy magical theme, this is certainly something worth checking out. Dave, I want to wish you all the best in this coming year. I can't wait to see what you guys have coming next. And hopefully when you launch your next game, we'll get you back on the podcast, and we'll talk about that one as well.
That'd be a pleasure. Yeah, thanks, James. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Friend, take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.